of all, I think your analysis was very straight line. History doesn't run in a straight line.
Kid, you cannot tell your neighbor he is stealing ducks when you are stealing frogs.
As High Commissioner, I was wrong. As Charandas Prasad, I reacted naturally how any person would have.
I did not come here for that kind of abuse. I did not come here for that kind of abuse. If you're going to go down that road, I'll walk off.
But it's all okay once they're talking. If they were talking, I could not have been here today.
You got ADHD. I got nothing.
Calm down.
I think I've done enough in terms of taking our team out of trouble from losing.
Come on, Lou Taylor. That's good. I'm reading the script now, and the first person that comes to my mind to play a detective,
Yes,
but
the
an
Chinese critic.
erratic
Mikhail
detective,
Rodriguez.
is Mikhail Rodriguez.
Why an African slap an Indian? Why a man and slap a woman? Look, girl, how you deal with that? You deal with that.
We must encourage platforms like this because it brings together different people and allows for discussions to take place in our country on a multiplicity of fundamental issues.
Gildarie, you apologizing for something you think I did is wrong. I don't want you to do that, and you should not have done that.
Hi, good evening. Welcome once again to the Gildarie Freddie Kissoon show. Wherever you are, good night, good morning. We're going to get right into it. Sorry I missed Friday. I heard it was a very good call-in program. Despite cricket and everything, people just continue to tune in here because, never know what's going to happen. You never know what's going to come out of Freddie's mouth or my mouth. We have to say things as we see them. We have to call it for what it is. Tonight is going to be no different. And in a very short while, my co-host Freddie Kissoon, good night to you, sir. He's going to introduce to you a very intense young man. I would say young man because I met him, and very pleased that we could have people of his caliber in this country. It's good when you see Guyanese people of all walks of life not unwilling to take up the challenges of holding offices which serve this country. Before I go there, I want to get a couple of things out of the way. It seems as if our people don't really care. I saw a video, I think a few hours back, little girl, schoolgirl crossing the road, a three-quarter way on the zebra crossing, the pedestrian crossing, and every vehicle would have passed already, and she's there. And the minibus decided to not allow her to pass. It would have been very tragic, and I don't think Guyana would have been very happy. That minibus decided to just cut in the car, and undertaken, I would say, to just don't allow that girl to pass. The girl had to stand there while that minibus passed on that pedestrian crossing. But it's indicative of how far our country, we've lost all things, our moral compass, I would say. We have lost everything when it comes to doing what is decent, doing what is right, towing the lines. I understand that we have a new traffic chief. The former commander on the East Bank, Mahendra Singh, has been named the new traffic chief. There's a new sheriff in town, and I'm going to say to you, sir, I know you've had a good time, a couple of years now, and you strike me as a good man. Arrest that situation. It's not good. I have reached out to him and said that we have our platform here, and we have other resources. It might not necessarily be money, but we have big mouths. Freddie Kissoon got a big mouth, and I'm sure that he's going to open it. What more could bring our country down to its knees than seeing a little girl, a teenager, that just collected an award for her performance at grade 6, heading home with her daddy, and a car reportedly driven by somebody who just came out of a rum shop smacked right into that car. 4 people dead over the weekend. What are we doing? We have so many things happening in this country. We buying license, we paying police bribes, We do all the things in the world, and then we cuss the governments. We have to change. We have to change ourselves. Freddie Kissoon, good night again to you, sir. Over to you.
Thanks, Leonard. Thanks for being with us. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, based in different time zones wherever you are. Welcome to the Gildarie Freddie Kissoon Show. Since the advent of the oil industry, there have been tremendous, which is a mild word to use, tremendous expansion of the economy. And I think if you drive around the regions 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you cannot miss the visibility, the ubiquity of of business activities. I've lived all my life here, and even at the time when sugar prices were soaring in the early 1970s, I've never seen so much activities in relation to business. And so it's always interesting when we have a macro national business administrator to discuss the nature of business post 2000 in Guyana or post 2010. Always good to hear the interpretation of the trends of business, whether you're in education, medicine, or what have you. An economy, the strength of an economy and the benefits of an economy are seen when that economy grows, when that economy is expanding. It impacts on every aspect of society: medicine, law, real estate, education, etc. We had just had a new hospital open in Lenora. There are more coming. The expansion of business, anybody who did Kenyan economics would know there's more money going into the state, and so the state expends more. So our guest this evening is a very young man who was taking on the mantle of leading one of the 3 business administrative organizations in Guyana. Of course, you know the 3 of them are the Private Sector Commission, the Guyana Manufacturing Association, and the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Our guest this evening is the president of the Guyana Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mr. Kester Hutson. Mr. Hutson, thanks for being with us. And
a pleasant good evening to you, Mr. Kissoon. Pleasant good evening
Georgetown Chamber of Commerce.
Georgetown, what did I say?
You said Guyana. You said
Guyana. It means the same. It means the same. The 2 are synonymous. Forgive me, but I think it means the same. Mr. Hutson, I want to start by telling you that every major business executive we've had on this program, we've had people from Guyana Manufacturing Association, private sector, we've had your predecessor here twice, and all of them have raised the question of the enormity of the strangeness, to use a mild word, or to use a very rough word, the oppression of the banking system on people that can do without it. Now, finally, we had the head of the private sector, Go Invest, Guyana Office for Investment, Dr. Peter Ramsupa. You know what he said? He was extolling the expansion of the economy and the future that lies ahead for Guyana. And he said, the only thing left for us to get right is the banking system. Now, I have seen a press conference with the Minister of Finance, the Vice President for Business and the Economy in Guyana, Jack Dio, and the President. And the Vice President was going on about how the banking system hassling people. My first question to you is on the banking system. Is it, could the Guyanese people do without the burdensome nature? I just want to say something quickly. I was I spoke to one of your colleagues, and I'm sure he's your friend too. He's one of the big names in the financial thing in this country. He runs a very important financial organization, very big, very prominent. And he said to me over the weekend, you know, this money laundering thing, it affects more people who are not involved in money laundering. I want you to take up from there.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kissoon. Now, in our discourse, from the GCCI's standpoint, we recognize that access to finance, and I rather suspect that's what you're referring to, the challenges that the businesses face in accessing what you consider as finance, it has been overwhelming, and for various reasons. But what essentially happens is there is much more engagement with the banking sector, and this is GABI, which is Guyana Association of Banking, GABI. So what is happening right now, it's a clearer definition of what the challenges that the Banking Association faces daily. And we have just come out of a meeting with Minister of Finance, and we have gone through quite a few challenges, open discussions, which I will not share at this point, but certainly there's a clear understanding of businesses in Guyana and how we can mitigate these challenges. Now, from the Chamber standpoint, we recognize that in order to circumvent this challenge, we have to play a part, one of which is access to information. Now, we have in our membership, which is almost 900 member companies, 75% of that are small, medium, and enterprises companies, the SMEs, as you call it. We recognize that there is a lot of mentoring that has to happen because there are a lot of startups. They don't understand what it is to grow their business. And we as a chamber have a responsibility, or a mandate, as we say, to ensure that that information is being disseminated so they can better position themselves in their documentation to present to the bank. And the bank would have provided that information to us, those feedback. Now, we continue to work with them, with the bank, to seek a lot of clarity in ensuring that businesses are compliant and they'll be able to access the finance that is available.
Okay, we'll come back to another aspect of that later, but over to Gildarie.
Sure. It's interesting that you raised that banking thing. I've had a cause to complain, but I raised some questions, and I did speak to a couple of banking folks last week. And I didn't hear you talk about it, but I'm going to ask the question in a very short while. One of the things that people seem not to be paying attention to is the shortage of labor. In the 90s, one of the biggest places that you would want to work if you just come out of school was in the banking, in the banks in Guyana. It was a good job to have had in those days. Now, would you believe it that people don't want to work in the bank, even if they go to a couple morning when they see the amount of work that you do? It so happens that what the bank manager told me, he said, Gildarie, do you know that people are not coming, that the other industry, the oil and gas industry, taking up this? Why the bad customer service that you're getting is because of the shortage of people that we're not getting, people not applying, simply not applying. A bank manager just resigned because he's going into the private sector, and that's just at one bank. All over, nobody's applying to do the counter clerk. Now, I've got to ask you, how bad is the situation in terms of labor in Guyana, and how is it that the GCCI and the private sector is working with government to maybe government facilitates the policies, but how is it that the private sector is working with the government to address the situation? It's a major problem.
Thanks for that comment. So certainly the labor shortage, as we would call it, it is present. We've acknowledged it. Now, and this is throughout every single sector, based on our research and feedback from our member companies. So there's no doubt that there is a labor shortage in Guyana. How do we manage that is what the discussion should be about right now. We recognize that within each sector, there is and because of the advent of the oil and gas sector, there has been a shift to that sector from all the other traditional sectors. We've acknowledged that. How do we manage that? Now, this was posted to the government of Guyana.
That's at the highest level.
Correct. Now, what we are stating that, look, there must be a mixed approach to addressing this, both internally and externally. One of which from external is the importation of skills.
How much do we have numbers on the table? What are we looking at?
Well, I believe it's over 100,000.
That we need on the short
term. And this
term.
is throughout, yes, and this is throughout our sectors. I can say almost 200,000.
And it would be remiss of me not to ask this question. Do we have any ideas where we're going to get them from?
Well, look, there are various nations that has the skill sets to fill these gaps, and we understand the trajectory of Guyana. And we can certainly create a matrix to import these persons to add to the production line and increase development in a sustainable way by some form, and it probably in a contractual basis. Outside of that, we have to look internally. What, from the educational standpoint, how are we integrating the skill set into the curriculum? No, you have these industries, especially let's say the industries throughout. How do we include this in the curriculum and start from the high school? Now, in other nations, you recognize and you see high school students being employed. Can't we have this sort of adaptation here? And of course, I know it speaks to the Ministry of Labor, right, and the labor policies. But we have to have a mixed approach, definitely, to reduce that labor shortage in the short term. You go to the tertiary institutions, what modality can be put in place to ensure that, let's say, the technical institutions, having them being exposed to the work environment, and not through 1 month during the August holiday, but more of restructuring the work program to ensure that they have more time on the work environment, to maximize their opportunities to learn a skill, to which courses that they're pursuing, and then of course increasing productivity from the work environment. You have the University of Guyana that you can do the same thing to. Now, the Chamber certainly stands ready and able to facilitate that sort of discourse. We have MOUs with the University of Guyana. We have an agreement with the Government Technical Institute to ensure that from our member standpoint, who are in industries, various industries, to include these students as part of their program. And it's a win-win situation. At the end of the learning of the student, of the course, they're coming out with a skill set. They have the knowledge and the requisite knowledge of the working environment to which they're pursuing the career. And then, of course, from the business standpoint, you're adding productivity. Outside of that, you have our neighboring countries. Venezuela, for example, that we have a migration challenge. What do we do with them? Now, I already recognize that the government has taken the initiative to have a system in place to integrate them into the society, right? For them to be productive and certainly reducing that labor shortage.
I'm interested, but Freddie, you realize what Mr. Hutson has just said? There are 200,000.
Well, Nicholas Boyer.
There's a quarter
Nicholas
of our population.
Boyer on the same seat with Mr. Hutson said 250.
Wow.
So we need to, I mean, when you have an economy that is expanding like that, I mean, the world, the trade magazines, the oil magazines, etc., have said this is a significant oil find. And I think what has made this oil find more significant is that it provides the United States with a safe passage of oil. You got to understand, the United States has been looking towards the Middle East since the 50s and 60s. The Middle East was their main source of oil. You have a friendly country in the Americas that has a huge deposit of oil, which is going to the US. So I think all of that have helped.
Yes, right.
I want to touch on something, Mr. That is in the air, and it was in the news. Is there a foreign exchange shortage, or that's exaggeration?
So there's a perception of a foreign exchange shortage. I cannot comment on that right now. I know there was a meeting earlier today, actually, with Minister of Finance.
Right, you can't say right, sure.
But I'm unable to comment on that right now. But certainly there is a plan going forward. I certainly could tell you that and this is a true representation of public-private partnership to ensure that that perception reduces or eliminates. That much I can tell you. So rest assured that that perception of the foreign exchange shortage will be removed.
Well, I've seen some comments.
The Georgetown Chamber of Commerce head speaks.
Yes.
Well, let Gildarie speak though. And Gildarie would have seen the comments over the last couple of days, which indicated that there seems to be a perception. I have a lot of Trinidadian friends, but we also have to call a spade, and I'm tired of people being diplomatic. We got to start talking what is affecting us and not be afraid. And there was some accusations in some quarters that some of the companies are here, some of the Trinidadian companies, was going to wherever they're buying the goods from. Let's say Timbuktu, you buy your goods from Timbuktu, and so you buy for Guyana, you buy for Trinidad. And Trinidad doesn't have the foreign exchange. Trinidad officials are denying that they have a problem, but you go to Trinidad. Somebody had to send some money to our company, and they said we can't get it. We got to wait a couple of weeks. So that's evidence to me that something is going on there, although the government is denying it. But across here, and I think the government would know, Bank of Guyana would know, because when you ask the banks, provide this information, the Bank of Guyana is a regulatory body overlooking the commercial banks is supposed to be getting those information. So you would have access. And then there was some talks that some of the invoices being put there, it was highly inflated. So it is reported. I'm just reporting what is said there. So something is happening. I'm glad from the government perspective that they are actually talking about solving the situation. Because little do you know, when you see prices go up at the market, if your foreign exchange you ain't getting it, or the rates are going up at the cambio, you have an issue. You have an issue in the supermarkets. You have an issue with your raw materials coming into the country. But although you might not talk about it, then I could ask you with this. What are three things that the private sector is heavily concerned about in Guyana at the moment? I guess we talk about labor, not sure crime. Let's talk. What are three top things?
Well, certainly, crime is one of them. And I mean, I can speak from the chamber standpoint, what relates to topical issues and enforcement. One of which is crime. One of which is traffic management. Of course, local content has always been at the forefront. Also, the financial aspect of things, and businesses being able to grow from stage to stage, right? I can certainly stop there for now.
Mr. Hutson, I live at Turkine, right by the street lights, traffic lights that lead into UG Road. And I could tell you what I see every morning. Now, I go into the park with my dog every morning, and I can't leave at 8, 8:15, 8:30. That traffic is madness. And it has to affect business because you have thousands of managers that either have to get up and catch that road at 7 o'clock or meet late when the traffic is over. Is there any meeting planned between the chamber and the top echelons of the police force to regulate this thing? Because I think the police force needs to have input from you guys. Ms. Hutson, I'll give you an example. Some things don't make sense in this country. It never made sense. And I wonder if it ever makes sense. You have a street called David Street in Kitty. It's heavily populated with business, both sides of the road. It's a nightmare. Mm-hmm. That street is a two-way street. Sitting parallel to David Street is a wide, lonely street with no business. It was the old...
William Street?
No, it's called Railway Street. It's the continuation of railway embankment. It used where the train used to run.
That won't be part of it.
No, but that's next to David Street. Right, next to David Street. Good. So it lies side.
Perpendicular, yeah.
That street is no business there. It's wide and it's one way. That could take off so much traffic from David Street. I'm afraid of David Street. People's side view mirror is going to get lashed off in David Street. Why would you not make Railway Street, which is where the headquarters of the AFC, why would you make that a two-way? There has to be a meeting of the minds of the police top echelon and the business people and other stakeholders on how to regulate this traffic. Some of the things I see in the streets just don't make sense. Now, for example, from the roundabout to Sheriff Street to Pleasance, from 7 to 9 is a one-way going west. And you see when you reach the roundabout, it's madness, Mr. Hutson.
All right, so first let me state that the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce and Industry is a legislative body by the Act of Parliament. Founded in 1889, so we're 134 years old. We are an advocacy body and support for business development in Guyana. The Chamber has always taken a position of supporting the public sector, and with that in mind, we would have in part of our architecture, we have 12 subcommittees. One of that committee is the Security and Governance Committee. In my previous role as Junior Vice President, I would have served as a chair for that committee for 2 years. During that period, we would have had several engagements with the Guyana Police Force on matters that our members would have brought to our attention, that we thought it best to engage the Guyana Police Force. So we'd have had various meetings with former commissioners and even the current one, whenever needs be. So we always ensure that we have cordial relationships with the Guyana Police Force, primarily to ensure that we have a good fluency of information, because our members need to get feedback, right? And it affects businesses whenever there are challenges as relates to security or traffic, right, in particular. We would have taken initiative to sign a memorandum of agreement with the Guyana Police Force. And this is to change the perception of what the Guyana Police Force is seen, or how it is seen. This includes training, which is key. Now, part of our membership requires, includes training. Members offer training as their service. Now, we recognize customer service is lacking, and even in my discourse with leaders of the Guyana Police Force, we recognize that is a challenge. We had various instances of persons going to the police station to make a report, and of various offenses as delicate as a rape, and they have to be faced with having this discussion with an officer right at the counter in open air. While understanding that there should be a safe space within that building to have such a report taken, we offered, the chamber has offered.
You hear that?
I'm gonna comment on that. That's all.
I'm sorry, that's in the public domain. We would have offered our service, and I would have advocated to members to ensure that they participate in this, because it affects everyone. Now, we would have offered that service, and this comes on the memberships or these businesses CSR program, right? To build out the new and renewed Guyana Police Force. We recognize that there's a challenge. Now, moving forward, our engagements with the Guyana Police Force has always been one that we are open to, and we are the business sector that is driving the economy. So we understand what it is to lose time and lose productivity. Again, I will advocate and stress on the point that we are open for dialogue. It is the administration of the Guyana Police Force to see it fitting to reach out to us and say, look, we need help. We're always open to assist. We don't expect you to come to us with a list of things that you need. And this is physical things. What about the soft skills that are required? Which helps to build the image of the Guyana Police Force. I remembered once that an officer stopped me without even identifying himself. And I'm at the traffic light is red, and he's telling me to turn. And I'm like, why am I turning? The light is red, and without any hesitation, he's telling me to turn. So I sat in the car, and I waited till the light turned green, and I turned. Pulled in from the police station, and I asked him, I said, sir, are you aware that there's something called customer service? His response to me is, I don't run a shop. And I'm like, you don't have to run a shop. We're not talking about that. We're talking about your general position or approach to civilian. It has to be one that's professional. How do you gain respect as a Guyana Police Force or a member of the Guyana Police Force? And this is what we're talking about, changing the perception of it. Now, we are open. We are ready, and we're open, and I'm going to leave it there.
So you got arrested?
No. Of course not. Of course not.
It's interesting that the issue of traffic, you can look at it so many ways. I live on the East Bank there, and every single day I'm amazed by what has happened. And I think if it within 2 years, with the exception of the Harbour Bridge, which I think is going to take a little longer than 2 years before it actually be realized, you can't solve the situation with the West End traffic and the East Bank around that junction there. But with the 4-lane that is coming, and they only got a couple more months, the two key areas from Mandela hitting down to Providence, and then the continuation from Providence into Diamond. They got to figure out how to bridge to Grove, because they got a bottleneck at Diamond there at the Diamond Road head. But it is, the simple thing is, it doesn't matter how much the police do, because I think the police at the head of Diamond, who are controlling the traffic every morning, they're doing a fantastic job. So are the ones that is at the Harbour Bridge. But there's only so much you could do if you got limited roads. But I do agree with you. I think the force instance in the police, and this has been something for years and years, we've been talking the same kind of things. How the police should be behaving, what's the attitude they're there, they carry themselves, they have the darkest tint on the front window. The police is telling everybody to strip the thing. But a normal policeman who just going to the work, he darkest tint on his front window. So the charity starts at home. And I think when you're talking on roads, you also have to talk about the general thing. I just saw the police release came out today, and I got to share this thing with you guys. On Sunday, yesterday, they did a traffic enforcement, 377 case, right, was made out. 165 of those cases was for speeding. And let me tell you this, I think they had about 25 or more cases out of that 377 for driving under the influence. How are we not getting it into our head that if you drive, you get drunk? But it is a lot more than meets the eye. How do you stop the sand truck? When do you put the sand truck to do? You need 1 million tons, or I forget how much tons are needed back in the day when they're for those housing scheme. Do you stop the sand truck? Do you stop all the jobs? What do you do? It's a difficult situation, rock and a hard place.
Look, I recognize that there is some effort by the Guyana police force to improve on the image, but I certainly want to stick on the point of collaboration. Now, you do not want to operate in silo. You do not have the answers to everything. You do not have the resources to make it to the next level. How do you achieve this? By collaboration. There is no other way. Now, you have the private sectors who are willing and in some instances have the expertise locally to assist you in improving that image, improving your efficiency, improving your performance. Why not utilize that? And that's my question. Why not utilize that?
Absolutely.
It irks me to know that you are operating and you think that you have all the answers. You don't. What collaboration does is to move you from ground up. And it has to be all hands on deck.
And I agree with you there.
Hutson, I would like to ask you, when next you meet with the hierarchy of the police force, to ask them, what are happening with those surveillance cameras all over? When you see a man cut through somewhere, jump a red light, when you see pedestrian crossing and the people in the pedestrian crossing and the minibus going, those surveillance cameras should pick. I know they do that in a lot of societies. They monitor those cameras. The monitoring station is at the back of the Artachon Convention Center. And so you could see these things. And the next day, the police is at their house or they get a ticket. One of the things I don't understand, Mr. Hutson, see if you could explain this to me. You have to get a yearly road user's license that you stick on your windscreen. You have to renew your driver's license. Certainly that software is so banal now that when you get the ticket, the police forward that information to GRA. So when you go to have your road license, lady, a thing comes up saying, warning that road license not to be issued because they have 2 tickets available. We can't reach that stage as yet. That's elementary software.
That's an interesting question here, Mr. Hutson.
So, which brings me to the next point. So, part of my mandate, and this is because I'm ICT biased. My company, which I founded in 2006, it's an IT company, right? So I'm always engaging when it comes to anything information technology wise. And so this year we're going to be pushing or advocating for digitization, to which you were speaking of, right? Ensuring that there's interconnectivity between agencies such as the Guyana Police Force, ensuring that they have the infrastructure, right, to be able to log that information and then share it with the Guyana Revenue Authority and all the other, and even the court system, to ensure that there's fluency and you'll be able to track that information, right? Now, digitization is what is required right now. As Guyana grows, we are strongly encouraged to improve on our infrastructure, because no longer you will be doing things manually, but it has to be done in an efficient manner. And time, of course, is not on our side, right? We want to ensure that we are efficient and be able to increase in our productivity, right? I know that there was some engagements in the past about the Guyana Police Force being going to the digital space. I'm not sure. I can't speak to where that is right now, and I guess the Ministry of Home Affairs can certainly tell you what's the status on that. But certainly, we are way behind that curve when it comes to that.
Mr. Hutson, let me tell you what one of your colleagues in business said 2 weeks ago in that same chair. He said a woman exporting hassa from Guyana to her hometown in Georgia in the United States. They seized the hassa in New York, and she's so fed up, she said she'll leave the hassa. Apparently, when she left the hassa in New York and went back to Georgia, apparently they charged her for something. So she's finished with the hassa in New York. This is where you come in. So the lady gone back to Georgia, and the lady driving, and the traffic police stop her, right, and bam, ran her name, and found out that she has some charges in New York.
Yeah.
That is so simple. You know what you're talking about?
Yeah.
You're talking about the software problem, the pile of traffic tickets that are wasted.
Yeah.
It is not connected to any networking system so the GRA could see it or the courts could see it. That is where you come in. You need to have this. This is the 21st century.
So, and I agree with you. And we travel a lot, and we see this, and we even look at television programs, and we see this in developing countries or developed countries. Why are we not there? I think it's because the will is not there to make this happen. So the change of the mindset has to change from top to understand that, look, and appreciate that this needs to be in place now. It will make, and again, it's a perception again, right? To change that perception of how we do business, how Guyana is being seen on the world market, right? On the world platform, as you see. But certainly, digitization should be in place now, and we have local companies again that can produce the same quality of service as the international companies, and even so partner with the international companies to ensure that this is realized.
I'm going to come to a statement your predecessor, your immediate predecessor, Timothy Tucker, said to us. He's not too keen, he's not a 100% embracer on the local content legislation. He talks about rent a citizen. Mm-hmm. How does the chamber and your colleagues in private sector commission and Guyana Manufacture feel about this local content legislation? It seemed to be controversial, and it is saying, quite a number of your colleagues are saying that Trinidad is going around circumventing the legislation.
So first, let me state that the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce would have been at the forefront of, or leading the charge when it comes to local content, and we would have been happy to see the realization of it as a legislation now. We have 40 sectors, 40 areas that local companies can certainly participate in. The Ministry of Natural Resources would have built out a secretariat, which stands on the ground of implementing and monitoring. Right? The chamber has a working relationship, a working group with the local content secretariat to ensure that compliance is there, ensure that we provide feedback to the secretariat, because of course members will come to us with reports of that sort of issues you would have just mentioned. our responsibilities is to ensure that business in Guyana is done fairly, and local companies can participate and have an equal opportunity to participate in the oil and gas sector. Now, there are reports of all of the issues you would have mentioned. The Secretariat is aware of it, well aware of it. They are now putting measures in place to increase on the monitoring and enforcement. And I know there are penalties that will be following that. And so we continue to engage the Secretariat to ensure that that information is adequately provided.
Gildarie?
Interesting. You know, all bad news. We discussed a couple of things here today. One, the labor shortage. A few days back, I think it was one of the leaders. I can't remember if it's Vice President Bajagdi or President Fernandez talking about the shortage of hotel rooms. And I could remember a time when you could walk in and just get a hotel room like that. Now you're not getting it. It's a good thing. And I think all this indication that our country is going places, that's a good way of looking at it. It's just that I think what Mr. Hutson and the chamber and the private sector got to be aware of. How much I think it's about 15 hotels being built right now. I think that is around that.
It's probably around that, but we have about 6 branded hotels.
Yeah, one at the airport. Somebody was asking me heading out to the airport last evening, where's the hotel at the airport? Right next to the airport, the hotel is being built.
It's a Marriott hotel.
The Marriott. Mm-hmm. But I'm just thinking here, sitting on, you know, we might look at it, there's a labor shortage and that's a very bad thing, but it's also a good thing. There was a time when Guyana, people were looking for jobs. Now you're looking for people to do the jobs, which is a good thing. Now you're looking to find the hotel rooms. In another couple of days, we have the cricket here. There's not a hotel room to be taken. People getting in to Airbnb and those kind of things, which is bed and breakfast, opening the house, get a kitchen, and you're doing that stuff there. And I kind of like that, that you could actually be having a conversation. How do we increase capacity? What are some of the feedbacks you're getting, the chamber's getting when it comes to confidence in our economy?
Well, Minister within the Ministry of Finance, Office of President, Minister Ashley Singh would have given the half-year report, and he spoke of the oil and gas sector increasing about 63%, 65%, and in non-oil and gas sector GDP is about 34%. That alone tells you the increase in growth of the country, right? And this is throughout every single sector. The need for us to be compliant and the need for us to increase our level of productivity is a top priority right now, right? Our culture of doing business has to change. And the president in last Saturday's event at Batavia, where there was a launch of a new quarry, he would have highlighted that fact that, look, the private sector has a role to play in how they do business. It's no longer the slothfulness and the excuses. We have to be accountable. We have to adapt. We have to raise the bar, because you have international companies coming in and they're setting the bar at a higher level. And we have to be smart enough to see that, look, in order for us to compete, we have to increase our the way we present ourselves. So from a small business, ensuring that your compliance, ensuring that your documentation is present, how you present yourself as a business is important. And you can certainly participate and be relevant, as they say, right? To be able to compete. So all in all, Guyana is looking really nice. I'm happy to see this. It's been very good reviews from our membership across all sectors. And so we encourage members to look at how they can better present themselves as a company. We've recognized in a competing world, we have to look at collaboration, and that is the key word this year and moving forward. Collaboration amongst companies operating in the same sector or even internationally, because you don't have the manpower, you don't have the resources to make it or be relevant. So you have to look at how you can foster that relationship, and it comes back to trust, right? But you have to start from at some point in improving the level of productivity by collaborating. So the chamber has taken a lead on that, being the largest business support organization and promoting joint ventureships within our membership. Companies operating within the same sector, instead of them competing, they can certainly collaborate, and by sharing the risk there, they can certainly have a bigger stake in the process.
I like that collaboration thing there. Just quickly before Freddie comes in here, I want to ask you, are Guyanese, outside of the existing business or people who get into business, are Guyanese getting the message that things have changed dramatically here? You have oil and gas, and that you got to come to scratch. You really got to up your game. Are they getting that message?
It is a slow process, but I can certainly say I've seen changes. We have seen changes at the chamber in how members, and this is based on the members, right? Uh-huh. We do a lot of advocacy work within the chamber. Within committees, we have a lot of webinars talking about what development looks like and how you can better position yourself to market and to be part of that process of development.
I don't want to push you into any controversial area.
Push him.
I don't know. You do that, and you don't have any guests. We have to walk a tightrope.
You're a very smart man.
You have to walk a tightrope. You have to give off pertinent questions, but at the same time, don't make your guest uncomfortable. I want to go back to the foreign exchange thing, because these are pieces of information I got from your predecessor sitting down here.
Yeah.
He said that the bank with most foreign exchange, because they're the bank for Exxon and these big companies, is Nova Scotia. And Nova Scotia is not forthcoming in giving Guyanese companies foreign exchange. If you want to stay clear with that, that's fine. And I will move on with another question.
Well, again, I'll just reiterate our discussion today, and it was a public-private collaboration, right, is to ensure that the perception changes. And so a statement will be forthcoming very shortly, where it will reflect such. But certainly those issues are being addressed by the government and certainly by the Banking Association.
You're using the word perception. Is that the conclusion of the Georgetown Chamber?
Well, again, we've been getting reports from our members, which we have we have to facilitate, and we will have to do our research, and so we will have to engage the banking association about these concerns that we have. Almost all of them are members of the chamber, so we get feedback. If they're being open about it in their response, we're not sure. We would have further engage the governor of Guyana, of the Bank of Guyana, and he would have given his feedback on that. And now we had a joint meeting with Minister of Finance, Minister Ashley, and so he's taking the lead on this and addressing it. So we are very happy. We came out of the meeting very pleased in the discourse because it was very open, and so we look forward for a fruitful outcome.
And the bankers were there too.
Yes, definitely.
The major ones, the ones that have to make the decisions.
The major banks were there. We are very happy to know that we are all, and that's one of our concerns, to have everybody in the same space so we can have a frank discussion. And we were very pleased at the end of it to know that there will be progress moving forward.
There's been a meeting, you said, I can't remember if you said today or yesterday, with the Minister of Finance, and the parameters of that meeting, I know you cannot disclose. But what I want to ask you is, one of the concerns I have as a person who studied politics, etc., is a country may have a government that cares, and it may have income flowing in. But if people's attitude do not change, like, for example, take me. I get a pension from UG. I get a pension from NIS.
You do?
NIS is
I
good.
wanted to ask the same, but
NIS is good in that you take your WhatsApp and you show a NIS person it, and they say, show me a photograph of your ID and your pension. At UG, you have to drive into UG and give someone a piece of paper, you know? So I'm wondering what are your thoughts as we get richer, and I'm quoting Professor Clive Thomas, who is no supporter of the government. I saw him said in an interview, there's going to be so much money coming in from oil that I don't know if the government can handle it. So we're going to have so much money coming in from oil. But are we going to get people's attitude? People's attitude are going to change? I have to go to UG and hand a piece of paper. I can't do that digitally.
So you're bringing us back to the same original point of a culture change, and that is what needs to be addressed. And my point still remains: the will is needed. In the absence of the will, then we remain this way. Now, side point again: digitization. Use the technology that's available. I'm sure University of Guyana can certainly be innovative, right, and adapt to the changes. Now, COVID came in 2020, and it would have brought some disruption, which was negative, but certainly it brought a lot of opportunities for us to utilize the technology that's available. While it being slow, they can do a lot more. And it's as you consider the low-hanging fruits that it can be addressed. There are various means of sharing data and ensuring that you can minimize the manual way of doing things.
Mr. Hutson, don't let me cut you. Sorry, I have to cut you. Don't ever lose your ID card in the 21st century. Don't ever lose it. You don't know when you're going to get it back. How could we have all this income from oil, and some person I know, my nephew, can't get his ID card replacement yet? Wait until this happens. You have to wait until there's registration. And those things you get in an office, you live, you're familiar, you travel. An ID card is a precious thing, the first thing they ask you for anyway. Your ID, please? And it's impossible to get one if you lose it.
But where do you go? You go into the place, or you go into GCOM?
No, they tell you have to come back. You have to wait, and so there has to be something. It's not as easy.
I'm not sure. I don't have the experience. I go into
because you don't understand. I keep telling you. You go in and you said you let out Gildarie.
Nobody knows me. Nobody knows me.
Nobody knows me. No. I'm telling you. I'm in line in places, and I said, Mr. Kissoon, come.
No, you're lucky, man. You're famous, you're celebrity, man.
No. You go in as Gildarie. But that carpenter.
In all fairness to Mr. Kissoon, I think I've heard of similar reports. But nevertheless, I mean, that's a systematic issue, and there's a cultural issue that has to change in terms of how employees operate and their level of productivity. Outside of that, I'm sure you're aware that the government is embarking on having a digital ID card.
Yeah.
And again, and I applaud that initiative.
When I saw pass by the passport office, don't pass.
No, I pass there every day.
You see?
I still see a line, yes.
It's crazy there. Well, we are out of time. Very quickly, you have an opportunity to tell people, you as head of the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce and Industry, what would you say very quickly to the people of Guyana?
Well, I will certainly speak to the business leaders. The Georgetown Chamber of Commerce is the largest and the oldest business support organization. We have almost 900 member companies, and there's a reason
and they pay
why.
dues.
And we encourage them to pay the dues, but certainly get involved in a business support organization. I mean, obviously, I will be biased and tell you to join the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce, but there are quite a few other chambers that are available that you can join, and even the GMSA. Get involved, get registered with a business support organization. You have access to information. You have so many benefits that could be accrued by being a part of such an organization, and it helps with your business development. It helps with networking. It helps to access a lot of resources that ordinarily you would not be able to do it on your own. And again, we're talking about collaboration. So I would certainly leave that with you, and we are here to support the government in developing the country, and we expect more collaborations moving forward.
Freddie, very quickly.
Well, quickly, don't go anywhere. Wednesday night, don't go anywhere. You're not going to believe who's the guest we have. A man who has made a historic contribution, but he keeps away from the limelight, doesn't give interviews. But I've been behind him for 5 months. So you're going to see who's our guest on Wednesday, and you're going to open your eyes big. I thank Mr. Hutson for coming. I have to say, it's always encouraging when you see young people taking leadership roles in Guyana, so we old people can fade off. Mr. Hutson, thanks a lot for coming.
Thank you very much. And if you would have missed that game over the weekend, our boy Moti did very well. I gave up on that last over and managed to bring it back. Very good over. So cricket is going to hit Guyana this weekend. One other thing, our moral compass. We have to be very careful that we show the next generation that, we have very high standing, and our standards are something to be emulated if we want to be examples to our younger generation. There was a banner on a fence, and I got to say this, there's nothing to hide. This program, anything could happen. And that banner it was a show called The Tight Hole. And it was raised with the commander of police because the police station was right opposite. The commander of police ordered right away to be removed. Who was going to be the judge of that? And that is the thing that we see happen. It might be something to laugh about, but we have to be very careful. Some things we should not tolerate. There's an old saying, if you don't stand up for something, you fall for anything. And although you might be the only person in the room with a say in advocating for what is right, we have to do it. It's a hard choice. Wherever you are, whatever it is that you're doing, come join us on Wednesday. We're going to have something very explosive for you, according to Freddie. I think you would have to whisper. And I want to say good night to my co-host, Freddie Kissoon, and of course our guest here tonight, Mr. Kester Hutson, President of the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Take care until then.
Thank you.